How's it going, Jets fans? Welcome back to Fireside Jets with your boys, Alex and Ryan. Today, we're giving you guys a little bit of an injury update on a couple of players ranging from Mitchell Robinson to Corey Davis to others. And, this Jets team coming up against the New England Patriots, not an easy game, but the defense, as we've talked about extensively over the last couple of weeks, is absolutely elite. Comes down to Zach Wilson, comes down to the offense. Can the running game maintain this pace post Breece Hall? And goodness gracious, I miss that, man. I miss Breece Hall so much. He, honestly, maybe a hot take, he would have powered the Jets to the playoffs on offense if he was still healthy. And massive blow. But watching what Saquon's doing this year, others have done coming off of ACL tears, I have no doubt in my mind that Breece Hall is going to come back just as good as he was before and continue this development that he's on. And hopefully by that time, the MetLife, officials have replaced that crappy ass turf with some actual grass. And it seems like all the players are now expressing their concern and desire for them to change that billion-dollar industry. Why can't we play on grass? You look at soccer over in Europe, whatever, they do not play on turf. It is terrible for your ankles. It is terrible for your knees. I played goalie in high school in soccer, and playing on turf was the worst. It was terrible. I would never recommend it. And for football players who make a lot of, jukes and whatnot, the turf is not very giving. See a lot of injuries that way. And hopefully they can replace that by the time Breece Hall comes back. So, we'll see what happens, but obviously some relevant injury updates right now. Ryan, why don't you take us away and let us know what's going on? We'll start with Max Mitchell first.
Doing good, Alex. I would say, on the injury front and just the buzz, after the bye week, obviously a whole week off, not a whole lot going on. But, within the last 2-3 days, obviously Coach Salas met with the media twice. Really starting today, you saw the big update this morning that the Jets are bringing Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, LDT, who was with the team in the second half of 2021. They obviously acquired him at the trade deadline a year ago, and he did some really good things, the final 7-8 games of last year. And, obviously I think there was mutual interest between the Jets and LDT to, re-sign for this year. But obviously with his, medical background and, what he had going on in Canada, he obviously decided to go back there. But, obviously now he's, clear from that and is able to come back. So I think it'll, be interesting to really see how this plays out for the Jets at this point in time. Obviously you're talking about a guy who has a lot of familiarity with the Jets, just being in this offensive scheme a year ago and really flourishing in it. To add some veteran depth there with Dan Feeney on the interior of this offensive line, I think is, a really quality, group already in place with Laken Tomlinson, Connor McGovern, Nate Herbig filling in really well at right guard. So I think down the stretch that gives the Jets, a really quality five along the interior of their offensive line. On the injury, front, there's been some good and some bad. We'll start with the bad. Obviously, Corey Davis not looking good for this Sunday. Obviously, he still hasn't returned to practice, and I think it's got to be somewhat of a growing concern. I mean, he was able to come back in that game against the Broncos. And I mean, he hasn't played since. I mean, they just had the bye week. There was no practice a week ago. And supposedly, Salah said he worked really hard last week. He stayed by the facility and was putting, the work in to get back. But, obviously not looking great there that he's still not practicing. And you're looking at probably another week of Denzel Mims, playing in the Z position on the outside there with his size. And obviously some moving parts with Elijah Moore going into the slot, Garrett Wilson staying on the outside at the X. So, looking at another week of Mims, getting more opportunities to prove himself. Sheldon Rankins, some good news there. Obviously, Coach Salas said today that he's optimistic he's not going to have to go on IR. So I think the timing of the bye week last week, with Rank, and he reportedly said that he wasn't expecting to miss the 4 to 6 weeks that it was initially reported. So some good stuff there. Hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks he returns. If they're not going to put him on IR, that's what one would have to assume. The other bad news, George Fant obviously still not practicing. He's been able to come off of IR for I want to say 3 weeks now. He's still not practicing. And, the final news on the injury front, some good stuff, obviously, with Max Mitchell returning to the practice field today. Jets obviously designated him to return from IR. So now he's got a 21-day window, I want to say it is, until the Jets really have to activate him. So should be getting an imminent return from him and hopefully Fant as well. But, for this week, it could still be Cedric Ogbuehi at right tackle, who's, filled in, solid, with all the injuries. I mean, Jets obviously lost 5 offensive tackles this year. So, depth has been tested, but hopefully some guys getting healthier here down the stretch, gives this team what it needs as they look to, make it into the playoffs.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at Corey Davis, I mean, him missing this game, obviously not ideal for Zach Wilson because you want him to be taking those steps forward. But end of the day, I kind of get the sense that Denzel Mims can step up and make an impact for this team. He had that kind of a drop against Buffalo, was, spotty at times. Garrett Wilson's going to be the guy. You know what I mean? He's going to be the focal point. Maybe Braxton Berrios gets a little bit more involved. Maybe Elijah Moore gets involved out of the slot. I know that they kind of want to get him more active, whether it be on short to intermediate targets or downfield, or maybe on some gadget usage or just screen passes. But I think Elijah Moore out of the slot is going to do a lot of things for this offense. Notably, it's going to create another threat, right? Because right now you're looking at, let's say you have Garrett Wilson who's playing, I don't know, 15, 20% in the slot, and he's, playing some boundary, and then you have, or out wide, and then you have Elijah Moore doing a similar thing. If you move Elijah Moore into the slot and you have Garrett Wilson on the boundary, Zach Wilson, the throw is getting a lot easier for him, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that Zach Wilson is a very good boundary football thrower. I don't think he sometimes puts all of that arm talent into reaching the boundary. I think he's better when it comes to getting it like short, intermediate, in the middle of the field. Sometimes he floats those balls too deep. Sometimes, those routes take too long to develop and he gets a little scared. He runs out of the pocket and then makes a bad decision. I think Elijah Moore in the slot will actually open him up as a security blanket, which I think could be really great, especially on those crossing routes and those crossing patterns. I think that Elijah Moore could dominate in that space. If you have, because Garrett Wilson is gonna draw so much attention. If you run him on those deep crossers, he's gonna drag a lot of defenders with him. He's gonna drag the safety and a cornerback with him, which opens up the underneath. We have Tyler Conklin. Linebackers have to allocate towards Michael Carter. Of course, there's so much talent to consider on this roster. You can do things to manipulate that and take advantage of the attention that they're gaining. You know what I mean? Like, Garrett Wilson now is getting legitimate attention. Use that to your advantage. Use that to get your other guys open, notably Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore can feast off of the simple fact that Garrett is now proven enough to warrant that type of attention. Look what the Giants do with Saquon Barkley. They literally run play action every single freaking play. Everyone's honed in on Saquon. What is he going to do? That's why play actions work so well. If you use that attention that's being allocated to your best players, you can open up opportunities for other people. So that's what I like to see them do in the absence of Corey Davis. Max Mitchell, of course, you got Dwayne Brown. I'd love to see Max Mitchell come back in here and really make an impact. And you think he's going to start when he gets back, right?
It's interesting. I think if him and Fant are both healthy, I think the pecking order is going to be Fant first, Mitchell second, Ogbuehi third. But I do think Mitchell is ahead of Ogbuehi whenever it seems like Mitchell is going to return before Fant. So I think that we will see him, shortly here for sure.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. I think Max Mitchell, the development they're seeing here, George Fant, last year of his deal, do you think Fant is staying here next year? I don't think they're going to extend him at this point, just the injuries and whatnot. I could see Max Mitchell getting the starting job next year. He's done enough to prove that he's developing in the right direction, no?
I'm with you. I think as much as I love George Fant and hope that he does resign at this point in time, I think it's too much of an unknown to really say that, you could really lock it in that he will return to the Jets next year.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable argument. But, you're looking at the other players here. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, he worked out and obviously, spent second half of the year with the Jets in 2021, signed. So, we'll see. Hopefully you don't have to use these guys. Like, anytime you sign a backup, a guy off the street, someone that hasn't played in a while, you do not want to use these players, even if they have a proven track record of being decent. He obviously went to a Super Bowl with the Chiefs and played in that game. And then, Sheldon Rankins, as you mentioned, optimistic he doesn't have to go on IR, but the bye week, it helped. Returns 2 to 3 weeks. We'll see. He's been a pretty underrated piece of this defense in the absence. So, Ryan, when you're looking at replacing Sheldon Rankins, do you think they kick John Franklin Myers inside? How do you replace that?
It's a great point, Alex. I've really gone back and forth between, do they put JFM inside? You look at the DN depth that the Jets have: Carl Lawson, Jermaine Johnson, Bryce Huff, Michael Clemens, Vinny Curry. I mean, even if you put JFM inside, they're still a good 5 deep at edge, to where I think they had that luxury if they so choose to put JFM, obviously, at D tackle, where, he played in 2020. At times sporadically this year, he's really been used inside, but it's been more just as a pass rusher on, third downs, 2-minute situations, things like that. But I think JFM is definitely, in a pinch here, obviously without Sheldon Rankins for, hopefully not too long here, not too much of an extended period. I think you can get away with putting JFM at D tackle for a couple games. If not, obviously the, practice squad, you have both Tanzel Smart and Jonathan Marshall, who were, well in that competition this summer, there with Nathan Shepard for that final spot. Obviously, the Jets consistently rotate 4 D tackles, so it really is a pretty pressing need when you look at just how they like to rotate their D line. All year it's been Quinnen and Rank, obviously, as the starters, and then Solomon Thomas and Shepard come in, with the second group. So that's definitely something that's going to be pretty interesting to see what the Jets do. The final point with that, I mean, they've also obviously had Linval Joseph in for a visit, who today signed with the Eagles. They were one of 8 teams to put in a waiver for Jerry Tillery as well. So the Jets have definitely been active, there on the D tackle market, and really haven't had much come to fruition. And at this point in time, I mean, it's something that I think is a bit of a concern going into this game, just knowing how good and underrated Sheldon Rankins has been alongside Quinnen Williams on the interior all year. It's going to be interesting to see if they elevate a guy from the practice squad or put JFM on the inside for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, look, JFM is going to provide a little bit of a pass rush more so than a run stopping, factor and variable. So, we'll see how that goes. Obviously, run defense has been probably the only spotty, like, kind of factor for this Jets defense. So losing Rankins definitely sucks, but this talent, there's a lot of talent on this team. They will step up, they will supplement the loss, they'll find ways around it. And I'm not really worried. I mean, of course, you look at the Patriots and their primary offensive catalyst is the running game with Stevenson, Damian Harris there. So it's tough to stop them. They have a very, very aggressive style and they're very aggressive running backs. But this Jets defense, make them one-dimensional. If they can't throw the ball, which Mac Jones is not that good, they're not going to be able to throw the ball very much. If you can take that factor away, you force them to run the football. All you got to do is stop the run. Quincy Williams, CJ Mosley, got to have confidence in those guys. They're going to try to get outside the zone. They're going to try and attack your cornerbacks, Sauce and DJ. And they're going to, Whitehead's got to have a big game. Like that's one guy I'm looking at right now and saying Whitehead's got to come up and make some plays against the run. And ultimately, like, he may end up being a catalyst. Whoever replaces Sheldon Rankins will end up being a catalyst there. So, we'll see how it goes. But obviously the Jets dealing with some injury. I don't think any of these guys are like irreplaceable. I think Corey Davis, obviously it sucks not to have him, but I think Elijah Moore can benefit a lot going to the slot. So we're going to see how he performs. Max Mitchell, definitely, getting back into practice here. Really, really good sign of him trending up and trending in the right direction. And Fant obviously still out, won't practice this week, but maybe he comes back in 2 weeks or so. So we'll see what happens there. But guys, always happy to hear your perspectives and opinions below in the YouTube comments. Make sure to enjoy the rest of your day. Like, follow, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Jets episode.